Hello everybody, Jake here for FMSCOUT, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys some ways in which you can make your Football Manager saves harder. Now if you're experienced with the game, you probably get to the same point every time. Maybe you've started a save with, I don't know, Nottingham Forest, Leicester, Lyon, something like that. You've eventually gone and won the Premier League, let's say, or Ligue 1, and then you're kind of worrying where to go from there. It doesn't really get harder. You win the Champions League. Obviously that's a feat in itself, but how do we make these saves harder? How can we make them last longer, make them more interesting? Well, I'm going to try and give you a few ideas today in ways which you can play the game slightly differently, with different aims than just winning the league and that kind of thing, which will hopefully keep Football Manager fun, challenging and good to play for you guys so you all enjoy the game. If you do enjoy today's video, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you have ways in which you've made your save harder that I don't mention in this video, then let me know down below, and then I'm sure other people will check it out and find it cool too. And if you are enjoying the content here on FMSCOUT and you find yourself not subscribed, then consider hitting that subscribe button. It will really help us out, and hopefully soon we can get 102,000 subscribers, which seems to be the next goal, slowly working our way up and helping this community grow. So let's get into the video, and I'm going to suggest the first kind of save that you guys could do to keep Football Manager challenging. So the first challenge I'm going to talk about is the Pentagon challenge. It's something you guys might have heard of before. It's something that I've wanted to attempt for a long time, and I'm considering attempting it this year on Football Manager if I can find a time. It is going to be a longer save, but your aim is, well, a pentagon, if you didn't know, is a 5-sided shape, and the idea is to win the Champions League or the Champions League equivalent in all 5 continents in one single career. For example, you can see I'm managing Chelsea right now. If you want to check that save out, you can go over to my channel, the link will be in the description. We're pushing for 750 subscribers over there, so if you could do that, that would be amazing. But yeah, of course, Chelsea, this is my save, and if we were to go to the peak with Chelsea here, we'd be winning the European Champions League. But then with these saves, where do you go from there? Even if you started with Nottingham Forest, who we've got in our next game, and you brought them back to glory and won the Champions League, obviously you could just end your save there, but a Pentagon challenge is a really fun thing to do, where you'll then go and manage in South America. Quite often Europe will be the last stop in your save, and you'll start off in the lower divisions in South America, let's say, with less coaching badges, and you'll work your way up, which links into another save type which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, so you'll have to do the Asian Champions League, the European Champions League, the South American Champions League, the African one. You get the idea. You've got to go across the country, slowly picking up these titles, and if you can do that and then eventually come into Europe and win the Champions League too, I think there is no real height bigger than that you can achieve in Football Manager. In terms of individual success for you as a manager, I think that is the most you can go for. For example, if we go to Boca Juniors, we can see they've won the Libertadores. I probably pronounced it wrong, I'm not Argentinian, 6 times. This is where all the best teams in South America go. This is the equivalent, as I think this is the right one anyway, which is the equivalent of their Champions League. You can see the kind of competition you'll be up against. Some of the best teams in South America there. You can see if we look at Orlando Pirates, who are a South African team, they are in the Orange CAF Champions League. This is the African equivalent. You'd have to win this too. It would take a long time because there's no guarantee unless you start off at a club that is like already at the heights. For example, this team seemed to have won it a lot. ES Tunis. If you started with them, you'd have a better chance of winning it. But what if you started with Nimba United? You know, they've won one Liberian Premier League. You get the idea. It's going to be very hard to build these up. It's going to take maybe 5 or 6 seasons to win the African Champions League with these. Then you move on to another continent. It's a lot of work depending on how you do it. You can make it easier for yourself. But I think this is like the peak of Football Manager. This is what it's all about. Making Nimba United your favourite team when you've never heard of them before, because you had Champions League glory with them. I think that would be absolutely amazing. And this kind of leads me on to my second way to make things harder, which is a Journeyman save. Now we all know, like I said before, the idea of starting off with Forest, with your favourite team in the Premier League or Championship, even League One, and working your way up. But a Journeyman save, which is one that quite a lot of people do, to be honest, it is one of the most common ones that is going to be on this list, is where you start off, let's say, unemployed or in the bottom division of a certain league, whichever one you're managing. Quite often you find people doing it in the non-leagues of England. You start off with no coaching badges, nothing like that, and you start to work your way up, and you see what happens. You move job offers realistically, you don't just stick with one team. That is something you can do too, something we won't talk about, where you bring a non-league team up, but I think that's quite obvious. But a Journeyman save is when you get a job offer that realistically you take in real life, e.g. more pay, higher league, higher reputation, that kind of thing. You do take the job offer, and then eventually you see where you end up. Will you end up failing and just be, well, I say failure, we would just end up being a League 2 manager, nothing wrong with that. Or will you work your way up and be the manager of Manchester City, Arsenal, Man United? You get the idea, and bring Champions League glory to them, and building your way up the footballing ladder. Now the next two hard save types I'm going to be talking about, you could kind of do midway through a save if you wanted. It doesn't necessarily have to be the intention of a save, although it is pretty good to do. And we're going to start off with a simple part of it, which is using homegrown players. Now that sounds obvious. For example, Chelsea's a good example, to be honest. The likes of Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, Reece James all came through in recent years, Fikayo Tomori too, and you use them in your first team. But what if you take this to the next level and you don't sign anyone? Obviously you probably wouldn't be able to get away with this at Chelsea, but if you started off at a lower level team and you only use players developed in your youth academy, how far could you go? You've got to improve your youth setup as you go along. Winning it with just the kids and taking them right to the very top. Will they fail? Will you get 3 bad youth intakes in a row and all of a sudden you're screwed for a while? And if you saw my youth intake video quite recently, you'll know that the majority of this is down to chance, which will make things very challenging because, like I said, there's a good chance you won't get a good player for a few years. What happens then? Then you get a golden generation. Will they lead your club to glory? I think it'd be a very fun thing to do. Again, maybe don't do it at a team like Chelsea because they're going to have transfer policies and board visions that you've got to meet. But if you do it at a team that's like lower down, doesn't have much board vision, you can kind of do it whichever way you want and bring through these youth prospects, try and hold on to them, try not to sell them on, and just develop your club into a top tier club using only your youth facilities. And this leads me on to something that I kind of did on FM20, which was rebuilding a nation. I did this in Holland, which isn't going that far because Holland are already a good nation. But you pick out a nation, let's say you go with Honduras. Now this is a very random example, so the idea here would be to start a save with a team in the country that you choose. Obviously the less ranking this team is, the less well known they are, the harder the save is going to be. You'll then try and develop that team into be the best in Honduras, the best in their continent, and you'll slowly start to produce players for your youth academy if you invest in it. Now as you increase your team's reputation, your league reputation will increase, and as your youth facilities increase too, you'll start producing some better young talent coming through at your club. Now what this will mean is eventually when you leave your club, you will go on to hopefully manage the Honduras national team with all the Honduras youth players that you've built up to be hopefully star players in your league and maybe good enough to challenge in other countries too, maybe even in the top 5 leagues. Then you'll have a national team full of these players and hopefully you can take them to World Cup glory. Obviously the harder you go, the longer this is going to take. It would be very unlikely that within 10 seasons you could win the World Cup with Honduras, but maybe after 20, 30 seasons you'll have produced a couple of star players, a few decent players, maybe you can put a good run of form together, and it does make for a very good challenge. Now like I say, if you are new to the game, I wouldn't go straight for a team like Honduras. Something like Norway could be good because they've already got some good young players coming through. I know Zealand did something similar with a Belarusian team. I thought that was quite a cool idea. So yeah, you get the idea. It's not like the youth development one where you can only use youth players in your team that you actually manage. But again, you're going to be wanting to focus on the youth side of things so that in a few years when you take over the national team, you have some good players to use. Now the next idea is a bit like the Pentagon challenge, but a little easier. It's something that I saw Dr. Benji doing last year, I believe, and that is Glory Hunter, or the kind of idea that Glory Hunter entailed, which was aiming to win every winnable cup competition in the top 5 leagues in Europe. So for example, you'd go to the Premier League, manage a Premier League club and aim to win the Champions League, the League, the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, you know, everything that you could win with a club in the top tier of England. Then you'd move on to France, Spain, Germany and Italy and try and win everything there. It is very hard to do, more hard than you think. Especially if you do what he did where he moved clubs quite regularly to stop the save getting stale for himself. Eventually, even if he did miss, say, the Italian FA Cup equivalent, he would eventually maybe go back to Italy with a different Italian team, try and win it again. So you can see why it's a bit like the Pentagon challenge, although it won't require as much work because instead of taking over a team at the bottom of Liberia, you're going to be taking over a team already in the top divisions. You could make it Burnley if you wanted in the Premier League, or you could go make your things a bit easier for yourself and do Wolves, Everton, Man City, whoever you wanted to do. But I think it is a very fun challenge idea. If you are getting bored of the team you're managing, try moving across country. It's very fun. I know a lot of people are rigid and stick in that I'm only managing England kind of thing. I was the same for a while, but when I moved on, you find that there's a lot of fun to be had in the other leagues. I think the Bundesliga, for example, is one of the most fun leagues you can manage in. I really enjoy it. And if you haven't checked that kind of thing out, then I would suggest that you do. Now, the final way to make your Football Manager saves harder is to set yourself a long-term goal. And one of my favourite ways to do that is to pick a club that are minnows in a city, and I mean minnows, and try and bring them up against one of the giants in football. For example, Paris Saint-Germain are obviously the biggest team in Paris. Now, There's no denying that they're the biggest team in France. But if we go to the second division in France, hold on, let me get there. We can see there is a team called Paris FC. Now, they're already in the second division of France, so this wouldn't take that long. Of course it would. You'd be challenging one of the big powers in Football Manager, if not the biggest. Maybe up there with Manchester United in PSG. And your idea would be to take over PSG's reputation of being the biggest club in Paris. There are other examples for this, for example, Manchester United and Manchester City, massive clubs in Manchester. There are plenty of clubs within Manchester or that general area that you can try and take up and overthrow them. For example, there's Salford in the general Manchester area around there, owned by like Gary Neville and the class of '92. If you could bring them up and eventually overtake the likes of Manchester United and Manchester City, not just win the league above them, but actually developing your reputation so that you must be classed as the biggest team in Manchester. But yeah, you get the idea. You'll be aiming to not just take a club from the bottom to the top, but trying to overthrow one of the big boys, not just once, but reputation-wise, and that is a lot harder than it seems. For example, if we look at PSG, their reputation is 4.5 stars. It doesn't get much bigger than that. I would guess someone like Manchester United has 5, yeah, so not only will you have to get your team up to 5 stars, you'd have to hope that with your domination, Manchester United would maybe drop off the pace, and then you'll eventually have overtaken them. Obviously, if you did just want to beat them in the league, you could do that. I'm not saying these are the only ways you can play the game. There's no gatekeeping or anything here. You just do it the way you want to, but I think that will provide an even harder challenge within Football Manager and will make toppling them giants a little bit more sweet. Now, before we go, I will obviously say if you're managing Chelsea and you support Chelsea, let's say, and that's the only club you want to manage, and it would be blasphemous if you managed anyone else, you can make things a little bit harder for yourself. For example, just adding a few things where, I don't know, make rules up for yourself. I think it's so fun where you say, I must bring through 3 players from our youth academy this year. That will stop you signing so many players, stop making the game so easy for yourself, and it will give you an extra sense of satisfaction too when the youth players that you develop come through and make names for themselves in the first team. If you'd like more of them tips about saves that you'd already doing, making them harder, then let me know, but this was to stop the game going stale for you guys if you were starting a new save, because obviously we're very early on in Football Manager. It'd be annoying for you guys if you spend your money and then get bored already, so hopefully this provides you with some different ways to go about things. And like I say, if you want a video about ways to make the current save you're doing harder, then let me know in the comments and we can look at making that. So I've been Jake for FM Scout. Again, you can check my Chelsea save out, link in the description. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video, hit that like button, comment down below and subscribe for more of the best Football Manager content. And I'll see you in the next one, guys. Goodbye.